Welcome back. All right, so this is part two of the Chris Kent interview, the legend, the man. And if you stick to the end, you're going to see this familiar face, Vincent Wepner, who is acting as our technical producer, but has handled a lot of our technical stuff and is one of our JKD instructors for the Wednesday night group. Dennis is a little busy, so for this introduction, how you doing, Vince?
So far, so good.
All right. Well, then that's all we need. It's been a long day. Yeah, we were not expecting the conversation with Chris to go so long, but it was again like Chris says, old friends getting together, and it gets better and better, I think, as the interview goes. So enjoy the second half, and you'll notice Vince gets to pop in and ask a very good question, actually, but you'll have to wait and see.
Stick around.
Stick around and enjoy.
I like to have a theme for what I'm doing, a spine, if you will, from which I work.
Great.
And the participants don't know it. I need to know it just because of what I'm doing, and then I can go off it from there. But for me, it's the thing is if I can give you material that you can take as a martial artist, as a JKD practitioner, to make what you do better, then I've done my job. Because, geez, I could teach technique upon technique for years or whatever. And that to me is not it. So yeah, so there, yeah, as soon as the last one was over, we took some questions at the end. We did a question answer session, we always do, and uh, Dwight said, okay, any more questions? And a hand went up. And so when it is, Titans five or whatever it is, Titans four, yeah, Titans five. So we're talking about that, yeah.
That's
We'll
great.
see.
That
Yeah,
that principle you're talking about too, that really is the JKD principle too. I think a lot of seminars is so much about showing as many things as possible, and a lot of people think that that's the only way they're going to get their money's worth, and they don't. Especially in JKD, they miss the idea of that Bruce Lee had on refinement.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, Tim used to say, I remember at Kaz's place when we would teach some of their advanced little weekends or whatever, he would say people make the mistake of thinking they know something when what they're doing is they're recognizing it.
Yes, yes, yeah,
It's like we already know the straight lead.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I call surface knowledge versus deep knowledge.
Yeah.
There's surface knowledge and then there's deep knowledge. Yeah, and that's always been the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand too is that there is a difference between seminar teaching methodology and classroom teaching
Oh,
methodology.
yes.
Massively different, correct? Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And people have a lot of people have become entrained into seminar teaching, and so they take that, and if all you've been taught is that way, then it's very difficult for you to
Mhm.
to turn around and do something else. And that's why I said it's like, yeah, if I wanted to do that, I could do that for years.
Hmm.
Yeah, so when guys are working in your Wednesday night group and they're there every Wednesday or whatever, and they're doing it and they're doing it and they're doing it, but imagine those guys come once a year.
Right.
Mm.
And it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
mean that there aren't good guys from that. That's the thing. I have met people that are whatever. I don't buy into all this lineage stuff for half the stuff, right?
Hmm.
But that I've met people that are way down the list, if you will, that have incredible knowledge about Jeet Kune Do. And I met some people that are right on the under frame, if you will, that their knowledge is like this.
Very, very little.
So yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So absolutely. So like I said,
Yeah.
it's the teaching, the teaching of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I
Absolutely.
think sometimes there's too much knowledge, too much information out there too. Like just like at some of the seminars, and maybe these people are getting flooded with so many fights on the internet and YouTube and cable and whatever else. And it's like I remember interviewing somebody that was into JKD, and I said, What's your favorite Bruce Lee quote? And they were like, uh, and I was like, ooh, they don't know any. So it wasn't so much like it was a trick question. It was like, oh, they haven't actually read anything
Yes.
that Bruce Lee wrote.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
different. It wasn't to put him down or anything. It was just like we used to read everything we could get our hands on with
Yeah.
Bruce, and who knows, and maybe stuff Bruce Lee read, not just what
Yeah.
he wrote, right?
Yeah. 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 Well, again, that's if you're only doing physical techniques, you only have half the equation because it is the philosophical foundations upon which the art have been built that
Right.
differentiate it from
Yeah.
even MMA. And again, there are great fighters out there.
Yes.
Nobody can deny that, but there is still this underlying foundation,
Mhm.
which again, it's some people don't like to hear it when you say, look, Jeet Kune Do is not about perpetuating an art. It is about
Mhm.
cultivating an individual as a martial artist,
Right.
Mhm.
because again, that doesn't fit in whatever the person's agenda is,
Yeah.
to do that. And it's a very hard, it's a very hard thing. John Little, when he was here, we used to have these mammoth conversations because
Mhm.
it was when we were just getting the nucleus going and doing the magazines. So I go over and spent hours at his house, and we would be talking about those exact type of things, you
Mhm.
know. And um, I don't know, my thought just went right out the friggin' window there.
Philosophical aspect.
Um, yeah, well, again, the understanding of it and the reality of it, the reality of, and applying it, that's the difference. And not just like
Yeah,
you said,
you're
not
right,
just
because a lot
read.
of people can't make that connect between the philosophical aspect and the integration of it into viability or reality. A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah,
They don't take
exactly.
the intellectual time to understand that either.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's what I was talking about. John would say, yeah, because this is an art. This is not an art for the casual enthusiast.
Right.
You have
Mhm.
to do your homework in this art, as we know, and that homework includes all of the various facets, if you will,
Mhm.
the physical, technical, the scientific, the philosophical aspects. And I think, as you said, Jeremy, then you do your own homework, and you might read a quote from a book that Bruce Lee read, and then you might look at that book yourself and find other materials in there that aid you in your development. So again, if you have a commercial school where you've got to have hundreds of students or whatever to make the rent and do all of this, then it's very hard to go
Mhm.
in and say, look, I can function as a guide for you and I can help you, but you have to do the damn work. You have to
Mm.
do the problem solving on your own, right?
Mhm.
Well, wait, can't you just, we're
Hand
gonna
me the
do
secrets.
yeah, we're gonna secrets. We're gonna do a bunch of again. We're gonna do a bunch of techniques,
Right.
that yeah. So again, it's how you teach, how you bring it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's there's a reason that, like, Dennis teaches a very real street ready class when he teaches his private classes. I mean, it's pretty much down and dirty.
Mhm.
Mine is again, it's not professional, it's in my backyard, but it's a little bit more like a kickboxing class. And the
Mhm.
reason I do that is not because I think that's the best way to teach JKD or whatever, but I found that a lot of my students wouldn't do conditioning and things on their own.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and they weren't learning how to hit with power and things like that. So we end up, we're adding the jump squats and this and that. And then so it's so great that I actually share Dennis's student comes to he's a young man comes to my class when he can on Sundays, and it's so great to see somebody that doesn't just get trained by me,
Mhm.
and you can see the influences coming from Dennis again, and he's my son's age, and they spar a lot, and he'll say, "Oh, you can tell Dennis has been training him lately. He got off the line and he hit me with this or that."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, again, it's one of those things where again through my spending time in discussions with John, And the cool thing with him is he doesn't have a horse in the race.
Yes.
So, even when the foundation was going on and these groups were bickering and fighting, he has no horse in the race. So we can just talk about what we want. But this idea, while um, JKD is about fighting and has an integral part in the reality of it, to say that it's simply that, again, that goes back to the holding up one slide from a movie and saying this is the entire film.
Mhm.
So I say to people, so what are you telling me? The 13-year-old kid who, whether he's being bullied or whatever, but lacks self-confidence, wants to develop, skills that Jeet Kune Do has nothing to offer him because he maybe doesn't want to go that route.
Yeah.
Again, you become locked in, and you can become locked in. We all know that the using no way as way, right? From
Mhm.
JKD. Well, if you're not careful, JKD can become a way,
Yep.
you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so again, when we're spending time as we've talked about, um, looking at the overall picture and studying the material in depth, the physical, the psychological, even,
Mhm.
right? Um, Knowing yourself, yeah, that's great. You know yourself physically. Do you know yourself psychologically, right? If your nature is you're not an aggressive person. You don't want to go in there and crash and do all this stuff. You'll defend yourself, you'll fight if necessary. Well, then maybe again, then maybe working on counterfighting might play more to your suit. You still have to know the other stuff, right? I mean, you have to be able to crash in the same way somebody who's a crasher in my eyes, has to be able to know that they need to hang back at certain
Right.
times.
You have to have an understanding of your opponent and what he
Yeah,
can and
exactly.
can't do, as
Yeah,
well as your own individual limitations, you know.
exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
So, again, these are things that I don't think fit into the agenda of the martial art industry
Yep.
because we know it is an industry,
Yes.
So
It's become very hard. One of the things we struggle with our seminars is, when we're doing our yearly seminars, sometimes is that because we don't have a regular school each, to feed. A lot of times people have their own students at least filling 50% of their events, and
right,
then they advertise by bringing the other 50. And Dennis may teach one person at a time. I have a little handful. I haven't. I don't think either one of us have advertised for years. People just
right,
find us still, but it is hard to teach because the thing that makes Jeet Kune Do beautiful, its flexibility, the fact that there's no. He didn't want us to be locked in and having only one way,
mhm,
and not to develop organized despair and things like that. At the same time, it can be hard to, especially when it's not a job that you do regularly. It's not your main job. It can be hard to teach in a way that it flows and then is recognizable by the next group that you work with, and maybe some people
right.
fly over, because we're changing all the time too,
Sure,
which
sure.
makes it good. But it's
Yeah.
like it's definitely easier if you just have a curriculum that's just written out, like
Oh yeah,
when I was in
yeah.
Junri's Taekwondo. They had very clear curriculum, and you got your belts, you did this and this and this, and
Mhm,
Yeah. And
right,
one thing I wanted to also point out, and I think I definitely want you guys to jump in, is that some of us who are now no longer as young as we used to be, um, we come to achieve this thing of understanding and wisdom. And with that, when we speak to JKD principles and JKD training methods, is for me, especially now when I teach these younger guys, is a lot of these guys come in with this, I don't know, this built-in social aggression. So
mhm.
when they can't do a drill, they get frustrated and they start, you know,
Oh yeah,
hitting themselves and like, what the, blah?"
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I want to be able to teach that person not to be the storm, but the eye of the storm so you can see what's going on.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that is part of what we do. is
Yeah.
helping someone to learn to develop to be the complete self they are. And I like to use Bruce's term of being able to express the human self, the
Yeah.
whole ethos
Yeah.
of that. And, like I was, particularly when we're talking to this about this one kid that Jeremy was speaking to, I want him to understand that he needs to be able to take these principles that we're teaching and apply it to his career,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and his relationships, not just, because everything we do is a relationship. Fighting is a relationship, good or
Right.
bad. Me talking to you, that's a relationship. Going to the store and talking to a clerk, it's a relationship. And using JKD, in every aspect as a principle to
Hmm.
apply, I believe is what I, as a teacher, instructor, coach, whatever title is going to be, wants to transfer to that student.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. That's it. I love teaching. I study it,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know. When I work with the guys who assist me in teaching, I have a curriculum guide, but it's by no means, like you were talking about, you have all of these techniques, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's designed as a kind of pedagogical teaching guide for them. So, we're talking about that, okay, whatever, cultivating the tools. All right. We're talking about lead hand striking tools, lead foot kicking tools, all right, whatever, and rear hand, all this good.
Mm.
Now, being able to combine the lead hand and the lead foot, and being able to combine the rear hand and the lead hand, and things like that. But then I continually study it, so I got about 40 pages of just material, notes, quotes drawn from all kinds of sources about teaching, training methodology, different types of approach, the principle of three, what an experiential teaching is, what guided discovery activities are. These that I implement in my teaching, because it's just what you said, Dennis. You're trying to get them to develop an understanding that, yeah, how do I take this, and
Mhm.
and what does it mean to me in my life, and stuff like that. You get people who have trained all of their year, they spent 25 years of their life training for a fight, and a fight that never comes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And what a kind of limited existence, when you could have been all of these other aspects. That aspect has become the only color in their paint box.
Mhm.
That's it. And that, again, now we're back to, you're limited. You know. Can I just have a quick question? Do you guys see me, or do I need to put some lights on in here?
I'm still
You
seeing
look
you
great.
okay.
Okay,
You're
that's
shining
fine.
through.
It's because
Okay,
your
that's
camera,
fine.
you have a good camera, so
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
doing
Just
good.
wanted to know. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to turn the light on because I was fading. So, but yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
just along the lines of what you were saying, yeah, you're right. The having the curriculum is important, but as I teach, I certify my students. I give them levels. They
mhm.
understand that we don't focus on the levels as if Bruce's feelings about belts and things like that.
Right,
But what I told him, I said, this is really for me. The levels are to make sure I know what I've taught you, that we've
right.
gone through the basics and things like. So there's no problem having them, but um, I still um, we forget to test people for levels. They don't necessarily ask me because they understand it. The younger people probably really like them more, and that's fine. But they
Mhm.
they 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 understand that this is training, and like what you were saying about having just training for that fight that never comes. I think about Bruce Lee in that last interview with Pierre Burton, and
Mhm.
he said all these things I am because of martial art.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's an amazing thought to me, is that you don't have to train every day because you're afraid a bully's going to beat you up.
Mhm.
Because when I teach women's self-defense, I teach them, and first of all, this is I learned a lot of things from Dennis because of his military background and other things that he did, and I assisted him in some of his classes for women. and some of the things that are not specifically about fighting, I was going to say not martial arts, but I think they are. They're just not about striking.
Right.
Is that you have to be aware that you can put yourself in bad situations. And sometimes I'm teaching girls that are 13 and 12,
Hmm.
and I don't want to scare them. And so
Right.
but I say, look, I say, you have to understand that you have to be aware, you have to be careful, and you got to realize that people could be trying to do something bad to you.
Oh yeah.
I said, but at the same time, you don't have to live your life in fear. When you
Hmm.
prepared and you do these things, you can check your back seat before you get in your car. You can look
Right.
underneath the car from a distance as you approach it.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to be afraid, but you can live life with a little faith.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, there's that, to me, that's the opposite of having to prepare constantly for the fight
Mhm.
that's never going to come, because
Yeah.
yeah, you then the motivation is different.
Well, I think the way you said it is there is awareness,
Mhm.
cultivated awareness and sensibilities, and there's paranoia.
Right.
Mhm.
Paranoia means you're always looking over your shoulder. Somebody's out to get me. Somebody's going to do it. Developing the tools and skills as you share them allows them to live a life of awareness
Hmm.
without
Mhm.
paranoia. You
Right.
Yes.
know? Yeah,
Because
and I
awareness
think
is the key to all of it.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, you
that's
have to
it.
be aware that you have to be aware that, oh, I'm getting sick. You have to be aware of something.
Yeah, yeah,
Without that
yeah,
awareness, you can't move
yeah.
forward.
Yeah. I'm actually in the midst of working on a small book, new book,
Oh.
and it's called uh, a new form of ADD. Because
Mm.
everybody loves to toss around attention deficit disorder, like
Right.
they toss it around like candy nowadays,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I agree it exists, um, but this is about no, there's a new kind of ADD. It's called awareness deficit disorder,
Mm.
and
Ah.
you see it with the phones and people
Oh
walking
yeah.
and they're not paying attention and they're in their
Oh,
cars and they're running and
yeah.
just a complete lack of awareness.
Wow.
I had a student who was teaching at Boise State, and they were running some tests on things like that. And one of the things they found is that when somebody is walking and busy looking at their phone and doing it, that their range of awareness stops 2 feet, like a 2 foot circle around them. Anything outside of that circle, there are a
Hmm.
lot of times they're unaware of. So, as you said, teaching teaching that and teaching them, again, just what you said, Jeremy. I still believe that the world is a good place filled with good people, but there are people out there who want nothing more than to hurt other people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And to at least accept the possibility of that balances denial, and that plays right into their hands.
Hmm.
It'll never happen to me,
Mm.
and then when it
Yeah.
does, happen, they're devastated by it.
Right.
Yes.
So recognizing this, and then it's like you said, cultivating the awareness, and then having a certain number of tools. But yeah, the tools are the last resort. You know,
Mm.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Two most important mindsets, in my opinion: awareness and adaptation.
Hmm.
And that's where I throw a lot of drills at my class, and somebody was asking me the differences. Well, I thought Bruce wasn't into you know, form, not forms, but set patterns. And I
Hmm.
said, there's a difference between having you memorize a bunch of set patterns
Right.
and me giving you combinations,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't have them memorize them and go home. We do something completely different.
Right.
And I think of things that are weird and sometimes off-putting balance-wise and things like that. And the whole point, and I think Dennis agrees, because I've seen him teach for 50 years, is that uh, the the idea is JKD is about being able to adapt live, while it's happening. And so
Right.
even with intercepting, if everything is just, okay, I'm going to leg obstruct and straight lead, you're sort of already going down the wrong, no,
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with thinking, closest weapon, economy of motion. But if you're planning out your moves to make things easier for yourself instead of teaching yourself to adapt, then you're already
Right.
in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dennis, I didn't want to change direction if you still had a question on that. I think did you have anything
Change
else?
directions.
Okay, good. I,
Adapt.
I wanted to adapt right now. Anybody hungry? No. Uh,
No, I'm
so,
American, not Hungarian. Why?
oh, nice. So, I know that you've been teaching Chris JKD for years, but you
Mhm.
said you've done you kind of alluded to the fact that you are doing some things new, a little different. You want to kind of tell us?
Yeah, 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 fine. The martial art component has always been a major part, and but writing the books with Tim, and then writing my own books and things of that nature. But for decades, the again this taking this material out into human life. The
Mhm.
every day, every one of us steps into the arena, and that arena is life. So the principles that exist in Jeet Kune Do, the understandings of such things as timing and rhythm and even five ways of action versus five ways of attack. And I've been wanting to do that for years. So
Mm.
um, John Little was my bang on that, because I've been wanting to work on this book, and I've been working on it for years. And he goes, dude, you just got to write it. So
Mhm.
that's when I wrote at first I just wrote, the first version was just Liberate Yourself.
Yeah.
And the second one was Liberate Yourself, How to Think Like Bruce Lee. And I'm perfectly upfront in saying too that part of I rewrote it because I wanted to put more in, but the change in the title also because I understand the business world better now. And the fact is that if you're walking through Barnes and Noble and you see a book that just says, "Oh, liberate yourself," yeah, a guide to freedom, Chris Kent. Oh, that's okay.
Mhm.
But if you're walking through Barnes and Noble and you see Liberate Yourself, How to Think Like Bruce Lee, wow, there's an interest factor,
There you
you
go.
know, the celebrity factor. When you were talking about drills, I was just talking with Cass yesterday because we've grown up together, and said, yeah, isn't it funny how with the cult of celebrity, if you tell your students, oh, hey, so this is a drill I developed that can help you work on your timing and your distance. They go, "Oh, okay, cool, yeah, all right." And if you're on a seminar, yeah, okay, cool. But all
Mhm.
you have to do is go, so, hey, guys, this is a drill that Bruce Lee used to do to cultivate his timing and distance.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, everybody's there, like right, chomping at the bit. I understand that. That's a cult of celebrity. So yeah, my direction I still do the martial component is working as a consultant with people on again, I don't know, some people call it life coaching. I just call it that this is what I do,
Mhm.
to work with them on breaking performance barriers, in life and in business and in sports, like that, you know.
Great.
Um, so that allows me to work one on one, especially with that material, because it's very much who you are, finding out who you are, and being able to adapt the material that I do from the martial component into to this. So, for me, it's great. I love it. you
Yeah.
know and I can also do it on the martial side of it too. So I can work on the personal consulting, but that can also be for JKD, or and it can also be that if somebody, I mean, I'm gonna interview a client or somebody, that if a school wants to work with me on specific things, then I can work with them on those specific things as well that relate to martial arts or JKD. So yeah.
That sounds great. So when is that newest book coming out, you think?
Oh, I never give times because I never know.
Exactly.
It's just there's I'm working on like actually two different ones right now.
Right.
So it's like if one's giving me trouble, I switch over to the other one, and then I
I
switch it back.
understand
And
that.
yeah, yeah, it's just the nature of the beast, as we as we say. But yeah, it'll get there. The one I was saying, the small, it's just going to be a small one. It's not going to be a massive book because I don't think it requires that. But it's just to, again, hopefully, look, guys, be aware, develop this, and unfortunately, we live in a world between the social media and 200 cable channels and instant gratification, and it
Oh,
becomes very hard for people to do that,
where is your book? Where can people get your books?
through Amazon, because
Amazon.
I
Okay.
self-publish them. Yeah.
Yes. That's the
Yeah,
way to
and,
do it.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, they can just go to Amazon and look it up, and it's right there. And yeah, yeah.
Liberate yourself, and then
Yeah. Yeah. The Liberate Yourself, How to Think Like Bruce Lee. There's the book, and then there's a workbook that goes with it that is a resource journal. It allows it's a companion to the book, but it takes the reader through each of the sections, and they can question themselves and write in it and things like that. So it takes something like like being willing to change on something, and what do you need to change, and then they find the answers themselves. Do you currently have what you need to be able to change? If yes, fine. If no, how do you get them? What do you believe will be the result if you change this?
Hmm.
Open-ended questions. What will be the result if you don't change it? So the questions are very open-ended versus yes, no. And it's for them to explore themselves, like JKD. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
So
We have there's a question I wanted to ask you about just for fun
mhm.
because I've heard this for years. Did you do some of the Bruce Lee sound effects for Game of Death?
Yes, yeah, yeah. The 1978, the 1978 film, which as we all know is absolutely terrible, right? Um, uh, because they only use, I think, about 10 minutes of the stuff. Yeah, they Dan was doing his yells or whatever, and I just remember going over to his house and him saying, "Oh, you could do it." I go, "What?" So he goes, "No, come on." So we went into his garage and got a little Super 8 video and had some of the clips from it that somebody had filmed at the Sing Lee Theater. He goes, "Now when he goes like this, you say like this," and so yeah, I went in and then I did an audition out of the studio for the producers, and they actually had a bunch of Bruce's screams, and they call it the chicken reel. The producer goes, bring in the chicken reel. So yeah, so anyway, I did an audition, and they go, okay, fine, you got the job. So yeah, I spent 2 days at the studio, doing all of the yells, the war cries, as they like to call them.
Yeah.
And so that was in '78. And then just last year, I think it was early last year, there's a guy I know who's done a redux. He's already done one on Game of Death,
Huh.
and he's doing this, and it's going to be coming out as a full documentary. And he asked me if I would be willing to do it again for this whole new version of it. So I said, yeah. So the first version I did in a lovely movie production sound stage with all of the big screen, and the second one I did using my iPhone, watching the fights on a computer screen.
There
And
you go.
so and sending him that. So yeah, that was my entry into show business, as I like to say, actually. um yeah.
That is so
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 fun.
can we call you the, I don't know, the chicken scream? I don't know.
yeah, call me whatever,
So you've been keeping in practice though for the sounds, right?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. People at the moment people say oh, do it, and I'm like, no, no, I'm not going to,
Yeah,
but
just when you're getting paid, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I did it, and it was fun. You got to remember, it was 1978, so I got to see what film of Bruce they put in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, as you know, it's absolutely horrible when you see those cutouts of Bruce
Oh
and
gosh,
cutouts
yes.
of the towel around his neck, and they were just terrible. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
All right.
Yeah.
First
There
off,
we
is that a surfboard?
it's a little it's actually a picture frame. It has three um vintage Hawaiian postcards on
Mm,
it. So it's only about 3 feet long. It's in the corner of my wall. But
okay.
so it's a picture frame. It's actually a handmade picture frame from Hawaii, and then there's three vintage um
Gotcha.
postcards in there.
I was just curious the whole time. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, I'm being distracted by that surfboard.
yeah, it was. Well, he did live in Santa Monica for a while. He could have
That's
surfed.
true.
Do you know what? The interesting thing there is I body surfed when I was in high school and whatever, and living down there. I body surfed every day during the summer for hours at a time. I never surfed until I moved up here to Boise, Idaho, and I
Oh,
went back to California. And one time I was visiting my parents. I said, you know, I'm going to try surfing. So I rented one of those big surfboards and went out and did it. And they say you either love it or you hate it, and I absolutely love it.
yeah.
That's
And I
amazing.
spent 80% of my time airborne and falling off, but but yeah, I'd like to do more of it. I really like to do more of it.
That's
I
cool.
But,
know.
yeah, it's
That
just
would be fun.
yeah. So
Dennis, are you a surfer?
Who?
You.
Did I surf? Well, yeah, I remember too. When I was young, we grew up like my grandmother on my mom's side, she lived in Palos Verdes. So my older brother, my only brother, he was a big surfer. I
Really?
mean, it's hard to believe, yes. I don't know if you remember my brother,
I
but
do. Yeah.
back in those days, he had hair down to his ankles. But he was a big surfer, dude. And then
That's
because we
amazing.
lived near Playa del Rey, yeah, I did surf. Yeah, I did. I confess.
it's great. It's so zen, man. I mean, it's like if you let your mind go, that's what I like about it. Like you
Mm,
said, talk about adapting. You got to
yeah,
attune and adapt and
Mhm.
constantly change, and it's you and nature,
Yeah.
and yeah, you can't be thinking anything else, or you're gonna bite the big one, man. It's like,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
done
So
that.
yeah, so I love it. Up here, they actually have obviously we don't have waves. We're in the middle, but they do this river surfing where they have these rapids. The only difference is it's really caught on. It's massive now, but you're surfing against the water versus along with the wave. But they go back and forth, whatever.
Hmm.
It's not the same though. It's not the same when the ocean is the ocean.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
So
funny. I wish I'd gotten into surfing myself. I have the
yeah.
hair and
You're never too
everything, but
young. Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, Dennis, you said Palos Verdes. Man, Palos Verdes late. I know how when you were talking about being there, but man, they had that group of surfers where if you were not from Palos Verdes, they'd key your car, flatten your tires, throw rocks on
mm,
you
yeah,
when you were out there
yeah,
in the water. Man, it was like, man, they were.
yeah.
There was bad news being down there.
Oh yeah, and because you had the Rolling Hills Estates and all those
Yeah,
guys.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
they built that little castle on a cliff and would throw
yeah,
shit down at you. And
yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that would have been my brother.
Well, there you go. See? Yeah.
Now we know who to blame.
Ah,
Well, before it gets too late, Vince, do you want to join us? You can turn your camera on if you like, just so we know
Sure,
who we're talking to.
sure.
And then you can ask the great Chris Kent any question as long as it's not personal or
where's
about
that?
Won't get too personal. No.
JKD or about Bruce. This is Vince, who's one of our students, and he tends to handle a lot of our technical stuff as well. And,
Cool.
and Vince
It,
Weaponer. Anyways,
it's
go
been
ahead.
great to tune in and live to this interview and interaction. Great to hear some of your thoughts, and digging in a little bit then into some of what you've been talking about in your pedagogy as it's developed to this point. Whether from this maybe a glimpse of something that might be in that 40 pager or from other heuristics, are there
Mhm.
any things that these days that you would look for, particular physical attributes or personality traits or mental patterns when discerning how you might best benefit a student or what to prioritize or emphasize when you're trying to bring out excellence?
Great.
Yeah, that's part of what I do is an interview process, and try and get to know them. Um, Take them through some things to see certain physical attributes, it's a whole process, and again, it differs for each individual. But it's getting to know them, and then what they're looking for as well in it. So, like I said, is this person is not an aggressive person, you know, um, but they want to develop certain skills. So, okay, how am I going to approach that? That's different than somebody who is a very assertive person. So there is no formula for it. It's just again the coexisting relationship between them, and that I work as a guide basically. It's not one of these things where I'm going to sit there and tell you, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. They don't need somebody to tell them to do that. What they need is just somebody to work with them to help them find that. So that's, like I said, sort of what I do in that nature. And that's the same with teaching any of the students. This person's more like this person's more like that. So you know
Is there anything in particular and again, in the decades of instruction that you found particularly surprising or counterintuitive in the position of instructor? Like probably, besides how much more you have to listen to be able to instruct, something along those lines.
well, again, when you're working with people, there are some people that are very open and they pick it up. There are some people that are very resistant
Mm.
to certain things. You know, part of it's looking at their character, trying to understand their character. I've met people where in the beginning they're all very much like this, and they're very positive and they're very this, but through working with them for a certain period of time, chinks start to appear in the armor, so to speak, and then I realized, well, this person is not the type of person that that he came to me as. In which case, I will oftentimes just end the situation right there. But I can't really say that there is. It's I have to look at this person, get to know them physically, get to know them mentally, emotionally, like we said, and then um, every person is a knot to untangle. Your job is just to find that out and then untangle the knot.
Yeah,
You
the,
know?
the the secret then is that there are no secrets. There are no shortcuts.
There,
If you
there
want
are
to,
no shortcuts. No, no. Teaching is, when working with somebody, it's about communication. It's about relating, it's just like an opponent. Yeah. If I'm working with somebody on this, taking down this one particular avenue, it's not working. I have to be able to shift tack, and right, like sailing, and take another way or find another way to get to it. And so that's a constant thing, and that's why I said that's why I'm constantly studying, teaching, looking at good teachers, iconic teachers of everything, and it's not just martial arts. I run the gamut from
Right.
from martial arts to dance, movement, to everything.
yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellence across the board sort of converges, and yeah,
Very much so. You start seeing that they all have similar viewpoints. They have differences of opinion, as we said, and that's perfectly. But I think there are um, common denominators, if you will, that run through common threads that run through. And it reminded me of when I was when I was training with Dan, and he would tell me, Chris, when you look at other arts, don't look for the differences. Look for the similarities. Look for the commonalities of movement, because those are the threads that run through all of the arts. So, again, it's taking this same thing, looking at artists, musicians, like I said, movement people, educators. You start seeing commonalities, commonalities of ideas, commonalities of thinking, things of that nature.
It's funny that, like you said, the excellence has that convergence and that across the board. So does laziness, doesn't it? And
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Very easy, and again, it's not that it's difficult, but there's so many differences. You know, what about this person who has been raised their entire life being belittled and being run down for everything that they did, and you're trying to help them work through that. But you know, again, that wall has been built high and it's been built thick, and trying to get that's a lot different than somebody who's been born, like they say, with their foot on third base already, things like that. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, but it's no different in martial arts. You get everybody has fortes, everybody has their likes and their dislikes. My job is just to, like I said, share them. Even as a teacher, I might have to put them into an experience or have them do something of something that I might not use anymore, or that, you know, and part of that is because I need them to experience it
Exactly.
and for themselves, you know.
Right.
This goes back to, like, when we were talking about these underlying principles, right? You know, no one can, you can't give somebody truth because it won't mean anything to them. I tell my students that I can show you the truth of slipping a punch in like 10 seconds. It won't mean anything to you until you have experienced it firsthand and looked at it and, oh, now I get it. Okay, now, you know, this truth. And if you lack certain things, speed or timing, again, might have to make changes. But you know, that's the thing, is to give the students experiences that allow them to grow and allow them to develop and allow them to problem solve on their own and step back. You know, to me, one of the top things about coaching is knowing when not to say anything.
Mm.
You know, when to stand back and just be quiet and let them sort it out,
Yes.
versus offering the advice, no, you got to do this. So that's what I said. It is an art. It is an art. It is an art of communication, and yeah. And you know, honestly, my goal, I've often said this, is my goal when I got into Jeet Kune Do was never to be the toughest fighter around, the kick-ass fighter, because that's not my nature, you know. My goal was to be the most well-rounded martial artist, JKD practitioner, whatever you want, that I could be.
Yeah.
And you know, I think I've kind of attained it.
You
Maybe
done.
not. Maybe 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 I've just been kidding myself for 50
Well,
years.
again, Chris, you can ask Bruce when you get back, when you get to
Yeah. Yeah.
talk
It's
about the
like,
picnic.
yeah. So Bruce, how did
Yeah.
I do? Oh, okay. I'll take that as a no.
Have we learned?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Start over.
Yeah. You know, I think the cool thing is all three of us here um have have been influenced in such a positive way, and our lives have been made so much better just by our connection
Right, yeah.
with this particular individual, you
Mhm.
know.
Right.
I think that's amazing. I just think it's so cool,
It is.
you know.
It has.
Yeah.
It's been
Right. It's
amazing.
just like when you spoke earlier about, you know, quote unquote, the turncoats, Bob and Jerry and Pete Jacobs and all those guys, how they had that camaraderie going on, you know.
Yeah.
And we also talked about that common thread, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It flows through us because our relationship, you know, because I know you, we know Brimmer, we
Yeah.
Cass, everybody. We're all a collective family, so we all have some kind of connection and understanding of one another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what
Absolutely.
makes it so cool. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, truly what separates, and I hate to individualize it like this, what separates the core of JKD,
Uh,
from
yeah.
the fan core.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a very big difference. Yeah. You have
Yeah.
all of those. Yeah. You do. You have the people that are like that, yeah. You saw it even at the nucleus events. There are
Oh, yeah.
some people there that are Bruce Lee fans, for
Yes.
his films and whatever. Okay, I understand that. But that's not what I'm about. And
Right.
the other thing, like you said, is this camaraderie is that um JKD is bigger than any one individual. I mean, there is no one individual.
Mhm.
And we are basically custodians of an incredible martial legacy. And again, we're not trying to concretize it and build a tomb around it, but
Right.
we're custodians and trustees, if you will, of an incredible martial legacy that we've had the great fortune and blessings to be a part of, and now for us to share that with other people, or maybe, I've often said maybe they can feel, because you can't give other people your feeling, obviously, but you know what? Maybe they can experience the same kind of feelings that we did,
Yeah. That'd be great.
and if we do that, then we've done our job, man.
Yeah, create an experience that'll last and last and last.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. We have a tough job, gentlemen,
We
but we
do.
can do it.
Let's keep going.
All right, Space Force, here we go.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Well, anything, do you want to ask anything else, Dennis? We've got,
I think we should take a break.
I think we should definitely have Chris back on if you're willing, because I feel like we could, it's been a long time. It's like
yeah.
good friends
Well,
getting back together, and
it is. It's been great, and I'm sorry, I can talk the ears off a deaf person, as my father used to say.
but it's interesting. That's the thing. It's not a waste of breath. Everything
Yes.
has been quite good.
Yeah.
And we
It's
appreciate your
educational,
time.
it's
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Well,
very
again,
much appreciate it.
just sharing. That's all I can do.
that's all
And
any of us can do.
yeah,
So yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and as I said, maybe somebody will walk out and they'll have that same feeling that I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure you, Dennis, and you, Jeremy, had the same feeling when you started, and you're like, oh yeah, man, and if you can do that, and then you're working with people, and when you see that light go on behind their eyes because they've got something,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the best feeling in the world. For me,
Yes.
yeah, because you look at it and you look at them and you go, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
We got it.
yeah, yeah, and now it's theirs. That's the cool part, is now it's, you tell them, no,
Yeah.
now it's yours. Now it's not mine. Now it's yours.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Make it
I
your
know
own.
exactly. I feel that way sometimes when I watch Jeremy teach. Not always. But
like this.
like Saturday, there was an event up at Matt's place, and Scott was teaching, and I know they wanted to give me a spot to teach, but I was just like, why? He's doing what I would do. So to me, that was just like, I don't need to do anything. It was
Yeah.
perfect. So
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yes.
very
Well,
cool.
thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for you
coming on.
guys.
And everybody, make sure if you don't have Chris Kent's books, check them out on Amazon. Pay attention to what he's doing on Facebook and all that. And we will have you on as sooner than you know. Yeah,
Well,
probably.
like I said, I'm happy. This is great conversation, and it's because we know each other too. There's commonality, so I really enjoy that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Until next time, everybody.
All right, man.